Elric, I'm wondering if you can just tell me a little bit kind of about how this movie came to fruition. Like when you kind of first had the idea for the dead thing and what kind of the process of bringing it to life looked like on your end.
Yeah, I mean, it started with the wanting to make something makeable, like a feature that you didn't have to ask for permission and $1 million for, because that's often what kills most of us in LA is waiting. You wait your whole life and nothing happens. So, being loving movies like Habit and movies that where you can see the independent nature of it, I was like, okay, I know I want to do a story like that. I really love single character focused, where you're really with that person a lot of the movie. I tend to find that to be a really exciting type of filmmaking. So I knew I had those things in the back of my head, but didn't. It wasn't until had somebody, a coworker, who would always talk about her dating habits, and especially the weirder apps, and just apps like, there's that one where you're in the back of a taxi together, and there's one where you're doing a donut and coffee, and I just found it very amusing hearing all the stories, and it started to conjure a person who was very lost, through that process, and where we could chart a horror story could come from, a modern contemporary take on something that might otherwise feel like an urban legend or something by the end of the film, and just started piece by piece trying to create a story out of it, and trying to always strip it back. Like we had the first draft was very stripped down, and then it kind of added another layer, and but I always knew that if we cast the right person, that it would have a lot of life to it. The character, it didn't need to be overly written, it just needed the right actor, and somehow we got it. In my opinion.
Definitely. No, that makes total sense. That's really interesting. Blue, I absolutely loved your performance in this movie as Alex. I mean, she is such an interesting character, and I love how even kind of she's not saying much, you kind of just express so much through your expressions and your body language and all that. I thought you were incredible in here. I just kind of wanted to ask in general what it was like getting to play this character, and if there were any kind of big challenges or hurdles you had to overcome to really get into Alex's mindset.
Honestly, it felt fairly easy getting into her mindset. Like I feel like I've definitely been there before. I think even at the time we were shooting, I think I was like dating like in like some on and off again relationship that was horrible that I like couldn't leave, you know? And like I was able to definitely put a lot of that in there. Um Actually that guy plays one of the guys that I sleep with in the movie. He is forever, we are forever in a movie together. I am gonna
Right.
he texted me when he saw I was playing at the new Bev. No, but it was like I was really excited to play a quiet character. Because I definitely have two sides of myself. Like I'm very like, "Ooh," and then I'm also like very, very, very quiet and introverted. And it's just really, I was excited to like try out like a more naturalistic style of acting, which I've always wanted to do. And you don't really get to do on like bigger projects because they really need you to be like on a lot in like a way that I find inauthentic. And so I was just excited to play like a really authentic character. It felt fairly easy to go into that mind space. I mean, it even kind of I felt like very depressed filming it, just like playing such a depressed person. Um, I think the biggest hurdle was maybe just more of like the horror scenes near like the end of the movie. I'm like, I have a really bad scream that I'm like really insecure of. Like, I need someone to do like the blowout, like, I need someone to like dub my scream, you know? So like whenever I do horror scenes, I'm always like really like nervous. But other than that, like, yeah, I loved playing Alex and um yeah, I liked playing a quiet person, but that still had like a huge inner life because I love quiet people and I find that they're very alive inside their behind their eyes.
Oh, totally, totally. And again, I just thought you were great in this movie. So great. So congratulations. Ben, Kyle is super interesting in here too, because I think I spent most of the first half of the movie kind of trying to figure out what his deal was. I mean, he comes on, he's super nice, and then he disappears, and then he comes back and he's kind of nice, but and then you learn some other stuff. So just kind of when you were first reading the script, I mean, Kyle, there's so many kind of layers to him, or so many different tones and vibes he can set off. What kind of aspect of this character were you most excited to play?
I think it was, I think that Kyle was so fascinated by Alex. I think that was like something that was exciting, like that he had this it's almost like he doesn't really know why he's so fascinated by her. Yeah, hard to talk about it without giving it away, but like it's, for me, yeah, that he doesn't really understand himself, and he's trying to like figure out figure it out like through her. And yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like kindred spirits a bit, like when you see the reflection of yourself.
Yes.
Not literal, and it's a part of attraction, obviously, but part of the idea is that this person's finally being heard for the first time. She feels heard and feels like the person's listening, and he's sensing something in her. There's obviously a darkness inside of her at the moment when we meet her, and I think that those two things are attracting these two, at least on the creative side. But I think these two performers found that, and that gives it its through line really for the whole story.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Totally connected to all of that. It's great. Alec, I also love just kind of how you directed this movie and infused so much like atmosphere into it. Like it's a horror movie and some scary things happen, but it's like not the kind of horror movie where they're throwing jump scares or a bunch of gore at you. It's like all based in real human drama. And I just connected with that so much. I thought it was so cool. Being an independent filmmaker, I'm just kind of wondering if that was always your vision for the movie, like that's kind of what your goal was when you set out, and if there was any kind of like pushback you had to fight against for like anyone who wanted more conventional scares to be in there.
Well, I'll tell you something really exciting. 2 days ago, I was writing with the same writing partner, and we came up with a jump scare, and I was like, "Oh, no one will see that coming." It was the cheesiest one. Somebody coming behind someone go, and I was like, "Perfect, let's keep it because no one will expect us to do that now." No, I did. It was always intentional to make saying that would be. I mean, it's funny that IFC Shudder is who puts it out because in my mind it's probably an IFC. It's like an indie film more than it's just a horror film, even though it's both things. But it was always, I love horror film. All my favorite horror films are ones that if you take out the horror, it's still captivating. Rosemary's Baby, take out that supernatural, and it's still working in all the same ways, claustrophobia wise and paranoia wise. A lot of movies are like that. Don't Look Now, just some of my favorites. They have the horror from just their drama is enough at times, and so you want to make sure you can pull that side of it off because that's the part that I'm going to feel something about. And and again, I've been saying it, but like the horror scenes to me are actually the love scenes, and that was very intentional. That was definitely in the text, and not like scary horror, but they're the ones where you're being consumed. They're the scenes where somebody's being overtaken and losing themselves completely. So I feel like those scenes are actually, if somebody was like really looking at go, that's actually where the horror is existing in this movie, not the death scenes, which are a little bit more throwaway, which is the opposite of most horror films. So whether it works or not, like that's not up to me, but that is intentional, and so it's like it's some trying to be, you're trying to do something a little different in that way.
Oh yeah, totally. And I love different, and I thought it totally worked. So big fan.
Cool.
Blue and Ben, I also just kind of want to ask you about your scenes together and working together in this movie, because kind of back to the question I asked you, Ben, there's some scenes where you guys are really cute and sweet together, but then there are some scenes where like there's something sinister going on and it kind of just escalates more and more throughout the movie. So what kind of was it like acting together in this project, and kind of how did you go about finding the connection between these two characters?
It's just
Hmm.
like it really came naturally, it's the same way that like they just kind of meet each other and like each other. I think that, as like actors, we just kind of like met and got along, and then like it all just kind of like progressed because we kind of shot sequentially, basically. And so it kind of like eased us into their relationship, I think. And it was very supportive too, especially because Ben does stunts and like a lot of the like intimate scenes are also kind of like very like active. They're actually much more like stunt work kind of scenes, obviously. So it was like a very like great relationship for me on set.
Yeah, I mean that's it. That's it. It's about two people like meeting each other and learning as much as they can about each other in a really short amount of time, which is the reality of what was happening. So it was kind of right there.